The title of the message today is Don't Be Drawn to the Chatter. Don't be drawn, DRAWN, to the chatter. This is for serious leadership and people that are carving a new path out of a traditional process or traditional ways. And tradition can go by existing people, existing relationships, existing structures, existing churches, existing businesses, existing something that was already in place where there had been conversation and status quo created by the place. Then when anyone comes in with a new word or a fresh word or a update of what is currently being done or a fresh anointing on a situation, the status quo that's there is going to have something to say about it. And that's why we're saying don't be drawn to the chatter. When God is giving you have people that are, or you have people that have been given a vision, and the vision is for a set time, and they've outgrown and they need to move forward. They need to grow. When people need to grow, they become uncomfortable, and it's something that sounds very much like murmuring and complaining because they need to move forward. And just like when you do a herd of anything, it doesn't want to move. You have to get behind it and startle them, or you get in front of them and lead them, but you're in shepherding, or not even so much shepherding, but in leading. I'll use that word. You have to be keen on some techniques, but when you're coming with a fresh word, and it's in the word, it's God's word, it's a fresh word onto a stale situation, you're going to have status quo. You're disrupting how we've always done it. And who are you coming telling us something new to do? So just in many, I'll give you some examples of chatter where people literally vocalize their either lack of understanding or don't appreciate, in how they, in a nice way, don't appreciate you coming and making a difference or coming to change. Just imagine that you're walking into a something that needs to come up to what God is redefining, and you are the first person to introduce the idea. And these can be very established people. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were very established. The ones that came after Nehemiah, they were established. Noah, it was a whole village, so they were very established. And so with Moses, they were established slaves, established condition, and then you're coming up with something new. Even in the midst of slavery, people don't like to change. I just said something really that's important. Even in the midst of slavery, people don't like to change. It requires effort to go from point 1 to point 2, from realm 3 to realm 7, from position here to position there. So when the Bible always speaks about staying ready, don't get comfortable and established, because God is moving. He's ever changing, ever growing, ever pushing you into a greater form of existence. And then we tend to want to say, "Oh, I'm comfortable. Let me sit down. This is not home. This is not home. This is not home. We're passing through." And the reason that's so important is sometimes people get on the other side and get shocked. Like, "Oh, I didn't know you still wanted me to do that," or "I didn't know I was supposed to finish," or you came with a certain agenda, a capacity, a certain level of talent, and it's your duty. You're not going to be you will go from different places and different groups and different lily pads. You'll go into a different situation, and as you go into that different situation, you have to go. You're moving through a crowd. "Excuse me, let me go around here. Let me step over this. That's what it sounds like, because you're moving through something that's going slower than where you're going. You're moving through. You might be in a church meeting and come up with some idea that is phenomenal, but they look at you because it causes change. You mean we're going to actually have to go outside and talk to people? We're actually going to have to shake hands and get our heads our hands dirty, and go out and communicate with other people. We're going to actually have to touch their clothes. We're actually going to have to do something, because we got the concept down, and we're doing it in conceptual form. We're talking about it, and we're reading the scriptures, and we're play marching, and we're marching around, play marching around the wall 7 times, and we're play beating the drums, and we're playing on the cymbals, playing on the cymbals, not really playing on the cymbals. We're doing all the things in action, in play acting, but we're not actually going and doing the thing. And so it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to practice it. Practice. When I get ready to really start witnessing to people or telling people about the Lord, I'm going to do it like this. So you practice. You practice on each other. But nobody ever opens that door, goes out into the highways and the byways and boots on the ground and start making it happen, change. And people love to pretend to be important and love to pretend to having accomplished or having done it. It's the doing that creates the difference in the transactional spirit realm. It's the doing. God is not going to meet you on the practice run. He's going to meet you on the real run, when you really actually start doing it, not talking about it, when you actually start doing it. So, and when you actually start doing it, because we are surrounded in certain circumstances, we're surrounded by we're encompassed by a great company of a cloud of fakers, almost doers, or kind of doers. And you get comfortable thinking, well, I'm actually, I'm around a bunch of fakers, but I'm actually thinking about it for real. So that must count for something. I'm thinking about going to talk about the Lord. I'm thinking about going to take food to this family. I'm thinking about going on, just when I go to the store and I have casual conversation, mention the Lord. It came up in my brain, but I didn't actually open my mouth and say it. I didn't actually, boots did not hit the ground. I was practice run. I was on a practice run. I was getting ready to do it. I was getting ready to transition. I was getting ready to hold my peace, but I had to burst out and say something. I was getting ready to forgive them, but then they did something else, so I got mad again. I was getting ready. See, that the almost doing it, that's not, the almost isn't it, it's the doing. It's the real doing. And when you really get serious and start, you will find some things happen. You don't have time to talk about the almost doers, because the almost doers are worse than the no's, because the almost doers will have you pacing in place, thinking they're getting ready. Okay, we got to be at work at 8:00, and you're riding with somebody, and you pull up to their house to pick them up. They're supposed to be standing out front at 7:40, and it's 7:45, and they go, I'm coming. Now you're both late, and just could easily have gotten in. They could have easily have gotten in the car and drove themselves, but they made you late because you waiting on them, because they sounded like they're coming out. They sounded like they're getting ready to do it. I'm going to go out and tell people about the Lord. I'm going to help you start this ministry. I'm getting ready to help you, but they don't actually do it. So what they do is cause you to wait while they're getting ready, and that's not really happening. When God puts fire on you to get something done, don't wait if he doesn't tell you specifically wait, then you need to keep pushing. You need to keep going, because there's a timing to blessings. There's a season to blessings. There's a expiration date in terms of windows of opportunity, and timing opens up. And when he says go now or do it now, or then you have to wait till the next season that opens up. And sometimes people in the almost doers, they're always almost getting ready to do it. Oh yeah, but you don't see it. And that's that is more dangerous than a clean yes or a clean no. It's that in between, almost getting ready to, and with that in between, almost getting ready to, it pulls and sucks on real resources that God is using. It pulls the serious ones and it distracts. That's what we're saying. That we're saying, don't be drawn to the chatter. Stay on point with what God would have you to do. on keeping your focus on the Lord. Chatter is a type of pull away. Like people go, well, we need to be moving forward in this, and whatever it is. Let me give you a scenario. You go into a room, they're meeting about. I'll use my example at the church a long time ago. We were going to do prison ministry. We spent an entire year role playing on how we were going to talk to the different people that were in the prison, how we were going to lead them to the Lord, how we were going to do this and that. We role played. We never, for one time, stepped one foot inside of a prison. Never made the phone call, but we were being busy. And I think the pastor didn't really want to venture into that area, but it was keeping us busy. So we're coming to church, and then we're doing no witnessing going on, no canvassing the neighborhood. Nobody stepped outside their front doors except Sunday to come in and to come out and to be at Bible study. Everybody was very comfortable. Parking lot full of Mercedes, but nobody was moving. And so when we got ready to move, we were practicing moving. When we get to this point, I'm getting ready this is how I'm going to do it. So when I really get into a fight, I'm going to do it like this. Oh, my God. So what happens is when you actually make the phone call or say we're going to do it on such and such a time, when you actually step into the situation, then everybody was like, I was just pretending. I didn't know we were actually going to. Oh, no, this is real deal. It was real deal. We're really going to step in. You're really going to step into it. And some people will take God at His word. When He says go and do, they're going to go and do. They're not going to theorize about, well, what did He mean when He said go and do? And what time do we go and do? And when do we go and do? And how? And just analyzing and thinking about it, because you ain't going in. That's a faker. That's called chatter. That's called conversation. But that's not called really actually getting it done. So when He says drawn to the chatter, some of the chatter will, because people do not want to be exposed. And I don't even mean exposed in a bad way. I mean, they don't want light to go. They don't want the light to show up on it, because it's one thing to do it. It's another thing for somebody to bring it to your attention. It's like just bringing attention to the issue. So, for example, if you're in a room and people are not doing, and they're talking, they have the idea, they got the vision, it's been written, it's been made plain, all that's fine. They know what to do. They have it written down. They've even practiced doing it. But it's the moving from the safe zone into the line of fire, is putting boots on the ground, is stepping out into. That's where the fear or the uncomfortable, back on that word, the uncomfortableness of it comes up. And people don't want to be uncomfortable, not even uncomfortable with time. They don't want to take from their schedule and give something to the Lord. Well, I got stuff to do on Saturday morning. I have stuff to do on that day. I got stuff to do. Just busy. That's on their stuff. And then when it's time for the Lord stuff, they're like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm not actually ready to do. I'll let you know. This is saints of God. I'll let you know. Okay, so what happens is when you get a doer in the midst of some chatter, and it's going to be a distinct difference, because initially it all sounds the same, but one is going to pull out from the crowd and actually take God at His word. And that one is going to pull out away from the crowd and start actually running in earnest. Somebody's going to start believing Him, and they're going to break away from the muddlers and the walking arounders and the murmurers and the complainers and the fear mongers and the procrastinators and the I don't think I want to do it, all of those. That's a whole little jumble, a whole bunch of them. Somebody's going to pull out and say, I believe God. I not only believe, I love Him, I heard Him, I'm getting ready to do it. And they're going to spend a second or two. And when they see people are not going to move, that they have to be at work at a certain time, and other people saying, I'm coming, you get just drive on off. Let them ride the bus. Let them catch up. But do not delay your agenda and what God has for you to do. And then they'll also do this. When you're trying to get ready, they'll just strike up a conversation about anything to delay you, to pull you back to where they're trying to get to, and to get the doneness of what they're supposed to get done. So don't be drawn to the chatter. On Nehemiah, and see, when you get to, let me go back to that example. When you get to work, you cannot tell. You guys work in maybe different departments, different areas. You can't tell your boss that you were late because you were picking up that person, because that person's not going to get in trouble. It's you, because he told you. You know, we always have our parents always say that. But what did I tell you to do? Not Johnny and Jill and everybody's overdoing. They can do it. Their parents let them do it. If you, oh my God, I don't think you ever. I don't. No, I don't think I ever said that, because it was be a case of sudden death. Because what did I tell you? Write that down. What did I tell, and write in capital letters, you to do? Because that, on that you, when he gives you your marching orders and gives you your assignment, he unless he says you and come together on a consensus, then you are responsible for that talent, that thing. Now you will know instantly as soon as you get on the other side. If it ain't done, you'll know, because you'll become keenly aware. You'll become keenly aware of what should have done, didn't do, what could have happened. Everything will be exposed. So the positives, the where you think God didn't see you, He will say, I saw you there. I saw you by yourself. I saw you struggling with this. I saw you there. And then the next thing that will happen is another situation was, your excuses don't work in heaven. You know how we have excuses in the earth realm. We can say, oh, well, this happened and that happened and da-da-da. And it could really happen. But that doesn't work in heaven, because even if it was a rock or a boulder in front of you, then speak to this mountain and it'll move. There's some prayers that go along with staying consistent with God wanted you to say. And you have to realize, under well done, that in order to get to that, and we always say there's some doing that has to happen, but God knows why you could or why you couldn't, where you should or where you shouldn't. He knows the gory details that nobody else will know, because you can fool other people about why it's not happening, but God, you can't fool Him, because He knows. He knows the struggle. He knows the procrastination. He knows the trying to and can't, or should and can and won't. It's all he knows the calibrating of between will and opportunity, and getting it done. Your will, the presented opportunity, and then getting it done. He knows what part was you and what part was not. He knows, okay, sometimes you really can't, and then sometimes you really can and won't. See, it's not the same. Look the same, but it's not. Some people would do if they could, and some people can and won't. It's different. The calibrating between how this thing was supposed to work, that all becomes exposed on the other side. That all becomes exposed when you really get real with God, and you're standing there and you trying to get it done. He'll let you sit there in the blindness of it all, just like the children of Israel literally walked around for 40 years. And just what they were doing was dropping dead, but what God was doing was letting them, because He needed a task done, and they had missed that first season, and now we're having a second season. So now we go in secondly, a second time. So the prayer is, Lord, don't let me miss my timing. Don't let me get distracted by the chatter. Don't let me get called back to a lesser position because I didn't keep up with the cadence you set for me, not the cadence, the group. The group doesn't go. The group dies. The cattle, the chatter, that dies. You don't worry about that. You have to. He pulls you out. He pulls you forward. You don't have to have a consensus. If some people will come, some people will drop off, some people will step up. You got to keep it going, because God has an agenda and a timing. So don't get drawn to the chatter. Is sometimes in a race, in a process. Let's just say you're working side by side on a process, and your process happens to be moving a little bit further, and then you hear chatter about past situations that has nothing to do with you. Stay where God put you. He might have you far down the street, and you hear familiar voices. You hear problems that you actually probably could solve. but it would require you stopping what you're doing and coming back and going and involving yourself. And that was a distraction. That was a, why don't you have enough oil? Why are you asking me for some of my oil? Remember how that worked? Some had oil and some didn't. And the ones that did not take enough oil was getting ready to ask the ones that did have oil. And part of the wisdom of the ones that did have the oil, because see, the oil, the shortage of oil thinkers, the short oil thinkers were going to keep thinking short. They were going to keep coming up short. That wasn't the first time they came up short. That's the first time it's documented. Here, they came up short, but there was some short oil people all along, just not enough, just barely enough, just good enough, just sliding in, just barely making it in. That's not operating in excellence. They was always operating in almost good enough. That should do it. That's good enough. You put good enough on something, you want to eventually die. You do not put good enough on something that you really love, cherish, and want to move forward in and want to thrive. Good enough and thriving are not in the same category of activity. They're going to get a different outcome. Thriving was because there was an abundance. There was more than enough. We kept feeding it and watering it and putting something into it. It thrived. Good enough is, this is how I always been doing. This what good enough sounds like. You know how I am. Well, that's how I always did it. Well, that's the way we've always done it. That's enough. That'll get it done. That's called good enough. And then but you know to do better, because you'll do something extraordinary when you think it counts. Like when the boss is looking, I'm going to really do it now. But on the other times, you don't have perfect practice all the time. You just doing that thing called good enough. That's what those oilers, those shortage of oiler virgins that didn't have enough oil, and then you have the ones that had the extra oil. Those were established practices. There was an established practice. The good enoughers always just good enough because they were comfortable and didn't nobody say, oh, maybe we're gonna need some more oil. And even while they were waiting, we're running out of oil. Here, take some money and go. None of that happened. They were sleeping like everybody else. And then the ones that had the extra oil, not only had the extra oil, when it was time to go in, they were locked and loaded. They were ready to go in because they had a reserve. They were in excellence. They were functioning in, I don't know how it's going to go, but just in case, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, however many plans, I'm going to make sure that we get it all the way in there. That's where they were operating. So my mouth, my words, my heart, every single thing in me is functioning on excellence. Even my mouth, I'm going to function on that part of it. I'm going to function for it to get to its maximum capacity of excellence. And you can't miss when you're prepared for all eventualities. That's a good word. Write that word down. Eventualities. Let me tell you, good eventuality. Everybody's leaving up out of here, and Judgment Day is for sure. That is called an eventuality. And we each have our own appointment with eventualities. How's it going to end up? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Because see, it won't be the stuff that works down here with regular humans does not work with the Lord. The stuff that works here, that's not your problem. That's not because you can't hide. You can't lie to him, and you can't hide. And that's when it's going. What is it? What is it? What is this about? What happened here? See how they always Cain and Abel. There was a settling up time. Esau and Jacob. There was a settling up time. And you get to something called eventualities, and that's where the true math plays out. The true math of what was really supposed to happen and what really did happen plays out. And God, like I said, God keeps perfect math. So here we go. Nehemiah could have got drawn to the chatter. They literally directly talked to him, and Nehemiah was like, he couldn't come down. He focused. Noah, they talked about Noah. They talked about his whole family. They laughed at him. They taunted him. And Noah had to stay on point. He could not stop building an ark. The ark was for appointed time. There were some other things put in place with the ark. And then there was Moses had, you talk about chatter. He was surrounded by chatter. He was surrounded by people that were not comfortable being slaves, but they were used to it and they knew it and they were willing to go back to it. They were going to fight to get back into slavery, just present themselves back and just go in and be a slave because that's what they knew how to do. They did not want to move from comfortable and known to the unknown and do that work to get to that next level of what that was. They were going to fight him for it. This is leadership. And Jesus, when we talked about the eventualities, they were the Sadducees and the Pharisees were plotting. They were plotting to get rid of him, and they thought they had gotten rid of him, and they were just thinking and scheming and circling around the inner group to find a weak link to probably he might have went and approached them. Who knows how it came together, but betrayal was on the agenda, and they did it. So the chatter, it was the chatter. The chatter is like, you're working and they're struggling in there with the lesser oil, with the delays, with the I don't think it requires all of that, with the I don't have the revelation. I don't want to spend that much time in prayer, but I want to get a download. I don't want to fast, but I want to get this thing released. I don't want to pay the price, but I want the result. And how can I hook that up? Give me some of your oil. Give me some of what you got. Let me gleam off of you. Let me hang around you. Now, when you get ready to go witness, I don't want to actually do it. I'll sit in a car because I don't want to go in and have the encounter. But I'll sit. See that? Everybody knows that kind of person. They love the hype. They love the praise and worship. When it's time to get busy, no, I don't want to do that part. I don't want I only want the candy. I want the cake. I want I want the bacon. I don't want the vegetables. I don't want the work. I don't want to study to show myself approved because that might require me to really be, because see, when you start going in, God starts peeling away, and nobody wants to get peeled away. They want to keep their stuff and add. They don't mind going to church. They just need to keep all the sin that they had before they got there. They don't want to lay that down. They want to keep it because it's something. If they can do this and that, they want to do this and that. They want to do both. And they don't want to get in close because close requires a tearing down and a tearing away. And close requires exposure. Getting close to the Lord, he starts burning that fat off of you, that baby fat, that selfishness, that can't hold your tongue, that bad attitude. He starts burning that off of you when you get close. And we all have to get closer. That's the agenda, always pressing in a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And when you start pressing in, that flesh, the wave, the rushing mighty wind, the cleansing power, that all of that starts to come up. All of that starts to make a difference. And so this is what we're doing. This is what God, he's pressing you in, and some going to go in and some are not. Some going to move in and closer and some are not. Some going to take the tearing away and some are not. So we're getting ready to read these scriptures, read them understanding. It's a one-on-one. There will be no excuses. I'm not scaring you. I'm just telling the truth. There will be no excuses because God knows about procrastination. God knows about good enough. God knows about people that want to be hang around the real business, but don't want to do the real business. Those that want to have the effect of fasting and prayer, but they don't really want to fast and pray. They want the effect of it, but they don't want to do the work that caused it. The 10 virgins wanted the effect of having had enough oil, but they didn't take the action to having had enough oil. They didn't want to do that part. Whether it was weighty to carry it over, whether it cost a little more, whatever it was, they didn't want to do it. So they did something called good enough, and that's what got them. That's what didn't get them all the way in.